fast am I? Good afternoon. Welcome along to Manx Radio's Mannin Line. Open line through until 1 o'clock this afternoon. It's Alex sitting in for Andy today. What is a glorious Friday. What would you like to talk about today? We would like to hear your comments, preferably on the phone. As long as what you've got to say is, what's the phrase? Legal, truthful, honest and decent. Sometimes would make a change. 66 13 68 is the number to call. If you can't get on the phone, and please do send us a text, 166 177, or a WhatsApp message. However, phones do take precedence, so 66 13 68. Do you want to talk about fluoride? Do you want to talk about the bus strike? Do you want to talk about horse trams? Or I'm sure there's something else that might be on your mind, so do give me a call, 66 13 68, and Chris is dutifully waiting on the phones. Now, I think the bus strike, again, is it just me, or did this morning's one almost creep up on us? We all knew about the 10-day one, and then this morning it was a case of, oh, there's another one today. And we've been hearing, obviously, from some passengers who were down at the bus station, or the bus station site, as it were, unaware. So what's your thoughts on it? And do you feel sympathy with the bus drivers? Because every employee is entitled to what they consider a decent wage, in their opinion, and wage and benefits for the work they do, as I'm sure you do in your field of work. But is it their fault? Or is it the fault of the employers, the DOI, for not having got round the table sooner and sorted out a deal that everyone is happy with? Well, I'll be interested in your opinion. 66 13 68. Texter 800 says, it's getting ridiculous now. They have been given good deals, in my opinion. This will not be resolved if the union rep won't go back to meetings or talk directly to the DOI. Is that the truth, or is that just what you've been hearing on the grapevine? Maybe time to privatise this service. Well, the privatisation, everyone loves the phrase privatisation, if it would work for a scale of an island of 80,000 people. You have to remember that if you go over to places like on Merseyside, we have millions of people, and the level of service you get from privatised bus services is a lot less than you get from services over here on the Isle of Man that's serving a lot of small communities. So be careful what you wish for, okay, because let's be honest, we all sit there and go, oh, it'd be much better if we did this. Yes, man down pub on social media, sitting there in his pants, putting a comment on Facebook, and then they don't actually have the reality of maybe what will happen. And if it goes, and you then get, one bus an hour between Douglas and Ramsey, and forget all your little villages and things like this, you can't then turn around and go, well, that's what you wanted. Anyway, let's get on to the phones, because it's always great to chat to people live on the show. 66 13 68 if you'd like to call. Robert's on line 1 wants to talk about the bus strike. Hello, Robert.
Hi, how you doing?
Not so bad. Lovely sunny day, isn't it?
It's not too bad. It's a bit cold in the shade. I'm over at Gryer at the back having a smoke, so it's not too bad.
Oh, right, okay. So what do you think about the buses then?
Well, two things really. I mean, how the heck are we supposed to get to 100,000 if we can't even get our buses sorted out? I mean, it's just diabolical. The government's dysfunctional. And secondly, I just think that, there should be a camera on the drivers. I think that we get it in the neck all the time as passengers with cameras all over the place. I think there should be a camera on the drivers.
For what purpose?
I think they're judged.
For what purpose? As in, why? I mean, don't get me wrong. There is an element of GDPR here. Why do you think that basically an employer should be spying on their staff? What's the reason for it?
When you say spying, why do you say spying? Why do you use that term?
Because you've got a camera on them. For what purpose? Why are you recording their every movement? What's the reason behind it?
Because they give bad customer service out. If they had more of a recall and a feedback, then you'd have more.
What are your examples of the bad customer service? What examples of bad? What's your examples of bad customer service? Yeah, well, you can't just make accusations of that example.
Well, okay. I mean, I think that when I was down in Dalby one time, I remember getting on the bus and the guy just looked at me and said, "I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. I don't want to be here." And he just, because I had a bus pass. Right. And he was just dissing me, basically. They don't want to go out to Dalby and stuff like that,
Right. Well, I mean, if you've got individual occurrences and complaints, obviously there's still an area you can complain. But in terms of, it seems a very, very big stretch that if someone didn't greet you with a smile on their face and a spring in their step, that we should install cameras to watch them at all times, surely? Because you could say that for anybody in any shop if they haven't served you with a smile that
Well,
day.
they do in shops. They do in shops.
Well, they don't have...
There's no reason why they shouldn't have a camera on the drivers.
Well, I don't know of any employer that films their staff and to insist that they're constantly kept smiling. If there was a criminal element, if
constantly kept smiling,
yeah.
not constantly kept smiling, but I mean just basic, delivery of customer service and being nice to people and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to understand that there are places out in the Isle of Man and there are remote regions, and they're only contactors with a bus driver. That's the only, form of payment that they give to get from one place to another. After that, it's the shops, and they're just part of the numbers on the street,
Do you not think, Robert, that the better way to improve customer service is to encourage and train your staff rather than threaten them with a camera?
I don't think it's threatening at all. I think it's feedback. I think it's a good feedback loop, because at the moment they're judge, jury, and executioner in the role that they play. And I just think it would be fairer if they had a camera on them.
Okay. Well, that's your opinion, Robert. I can't imagine it's going to catch on, but thank you very much for your call on that one. So Robert thinks that bus drivers should be constantly monitored by cameras to ensure that customer service is improved. It's a new one. I'll grant him that one, but that is Robert's opinion. As I said, I'm pretty sure there'll be a GDPR thing in that about constantly filming people at work without a good, solid reason for it. But anyway, let's move on. We've got Ken, who wants to talk about buses on line 3. Hello, Ken.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Before I go into the social aspects of what I'm about to say, or I won't go into the social aspects, I've never met any discourteous bus drivers. I use the buses a lot. Right. How much money are we saving by not running kids to school these days? It must cost a fortune.
Are we talking about as in for not running kids to school in individual cars or not doing the school buses?
No, in buses.
Right,
in
okay.
buses. Because they come into Peel to the QE2, say about 5 buses, and there's only 2 that are used later. The other 3 return to Bank Circus empty.
Well, I think it's been pretty well known, isn't it, that the reason we have such a large bush fleet is to service the school bus requirements. And if we didn't have those, what would you be transporting the kids to school in?
Well, they make their own way there, or get driven, or live nearer the schools. When people buy houses, it's like building cheaper houses out of, say, I'm not going to pick on Derby, but I mentioned Derby. How are they going to get to school after they've gone to the primary school?
Well,
people have to think
where
they're going to live.
There's a big change in society there, isn't there? Because if you're talking like Derby, Andreas Bride, secondary school kids can't be expected to walk into Ramsey Grammar. So are we suggesting we build new secondary schools all out in all the different villages?
No, I'm suggesting we build houses nearer where the schools are.
But
before you buy your house out, you've got to think about the future. But I don't want to get into the social aspects of.
But it's an economic aspect, isn't it, Ken? Because if you think about it, what you're saying is that all people who have children near school need to live in one of the main conurbations. So secondary schools, that means Ramsey, Castletown, Peel, and Douglas. Families can only live there within a walking distance, or because we don't want to encourage more cars on the road. I think we all agree that our roads are a bit chocker as it is, aren't they?
I thought we were trying to encourage more cars with electric cars.
We're not trying to up the numbers, though. Public transport is a much more economical way. If you're carrying, say, 50 people on a bus instead of 50 separate cars going to a school, that's going to cause gridlock, isn't it?
No, right. But how much money are we saving? How many kids are missing school because there's a bus strike on? Nobody's coming out with any figures. Just like the pay deal that the bus drivers want. I've got no relatives that are bus drivers. But nobody's actually said what the offers are, in theory.
Well, we
You know,
did
bake off.
we did publish the offers on. It was a news story about 3 or 4 days ago. I'll have a look
All right.
at that. But in terms of saving money, well, quite frankly, Ken, if it's all about money, we could save money by getting rid of the bus service, and we could save money by getting rid of everything that government does. We could close hospitals and just ship people to the UK. I mean, everything's got a cost to it. It's whether we think that cost has a value. Yeah.
But how many kids are missing school?
Well, as far as we're aware, none. They should all be in school. It's not.
No, when the bus strike's on.
Right.
When the bus strike's on.
But do you have facts and figures that you suggest that kids are skiving
No,
off school?
I don't have any facts and figures.
Okay.
The minister said there's only a few, and everything was running smoothly.
I was going to say, because I know full well on the East Coast, of course, that in placement of the buses, school buses, there's school trams taking place. So the Manx Electric Railway is taking the strain on some areas there. Whether that could be a future thing, I don't know. But
I assume they're getting picked up by the minibuses that they bought lots of, 20 odd minibuses they bought that sit down at Bank Circus.
Well, I'm not going to lie, Ken. If I'm being blunt, it does sound like you've got a bit of a chip on your shoulder that we seem to have lots of buses. I mean, is that a problem that we've got a good public transport system?
When we've spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on them, yes, we should all be concerned about how many buses we buy.
Oh yeah, but if they're being used, why shouldn't we want a good bus service? I mean, outside of the strikes, if we've got a number of buses that provide good services to schools and a reasonable, decent service to the community, which is far and away above some of the places in the UK, why is that a problem if we've spent money on something but we're getting value for it?
But it's not a problem.
Yeah.
The problem is we're not paying the bus drivers the right amount for working at weekends.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a different thing. I've actually got here. Thank you to my producer, Ken. I'll let you know the offers. So offer 1 was in November 2025. The drivers were offered a weekend rate of time and a third, which worked out at about £21.41 an hour, alongside a proposal to modernise working practices and merge certain allowances. Offer 2 moved towards a single consolidated pay rate for drivers, with changes to allowances and working practices to standardise pay across the workforce. Offer 3 was a revised proposal that continued the idea of aligning drivers onto the same pay rate and adjusting existing allowances and overtime arrangements. Offer 4 was a flat hourly rate of £17.20 for all hours worked, with allowances folded into the base pay and improvements to rostering arrangements. Offer 5 was based around a £17.20 hourly rate, with proposals to move drivers to monthly pay and introduce revised sickness and working arrangements. And offer 6, which is the most recent offer, is a consolidated hourly rate of a lower one. It's £16.84 plus a £1,000 one-off payment, which obviously doesn't go towards your salary ongoing, and changes to weekend premiums and working patterns. And all 6 offers have been rejected by Unite the Union, which says the issue just isn't the headline pay figure, but the structure of the pay system and fairness between drivers. And I can tell you that also, in terms of bus driver pay, the Isle of Man versus the UK, government figures say that the average bus van driver earns around $36,000 a year, and the recruitment adverts in recent years show that starting pay for bus van drivers is between £13, £34 and £15 an hour. So the UK, the bus drivers typically earn $26,000 to $33,000 a year, and hourly rates between £14 and £16 an hour. But if it's in a larger city, it is more. They earn over $40,000 a year. So broadly speaking, pay levels on the Isle of Man sit around the upper middle of UK bus driver earnings. So yeah, I know that's a lot to take in, Ken, but there's the info for you.
I do question that £36,000 figure a year, but most of the offers you mentioned are all attached with conditions before they get any more money. There's always conditions.
Yeah, I mean, those are the headline information. But yeah, I mean, the offer states, adjusting existing allowances and overtime arrangements. I suppose there's an element of, if there's going to be a change, if you're the employee, you want more money. And if you're the employer, you've only got a certain amount of money to go round, and you've got to try and meet in the middle, haven't you? I suppose that's what a negotiation is.
Well, yes. I don't I don't, as a radio presenter, I don't know whether you get paid extra for working on a Saturday or Sunday. But being an ex-civil servant, I did.
But no, I don't.
And that's what you... No, right. So there are jobs, but I presume you knew that when you took the job.
Oh, yeah.
Is what they're saying about the new contract for the drivers. You knew the conditions when you took the job. And then you find there's other people you're working alongside, they're getting more money.
Yeah.
For driving the same bus on the same day, but a later day, next week.
I mean, that you could say, and this is beyond the bus drivers, and as usual, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, that really, when people go on strike, it's normally a sign that that if there's an area of society that has not kept up with the pay rates or conditions of other areas of society, this is a problem that really people have not been paid appropriately and are getting left behind, and that's something that normally people don't go on strike for the fun of it. It's normally the last resort, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is.
I mean, what's your opinion in terms of how to settle this strike? What do you think needs to happen?
Pay all the drivers more than a probably time and a half rather than a time and a third. Where did that come from? A time and a third for us working on Saturday. But that was attached with conditions about overtime and allowances. I don't know what allowances they get.
So, in your point of view, do you think it's a case of that someone needs to bang their heads together of the negotiating sides and say, actually, you need to get this sorted so the bus drivers are paid what they consider a fair wage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ken. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Okay.
Thank you for your opinion.
Cheers. Bye.
Lovely to chat to Ken. I've never chatted to Ken before. It's always good to have a bit of a conversation about what's going on. The bus strike, it is difficult, as with any striking. We know there's always two sides to the strike. And also, when it comes to you as a bus user, we do have an extensive network on the Isle of Man. If you ever go on the bus.im little app that shows you where all the buses are and where all the trams are, I particularly like the one that's on the horse tram. It has like a little static horse tram that moves in the summer. But if you look on that on a normal day, just have a look how many buses there are in service on the Isle of Man. And I don't think I think for times we take it for granted over here what a fantastic bus service we have, a public transport service compared to the UK. Now, I know in the UK it's a balance between bus services, there are in-town rail services. I mean, we've got no commuter rail service to speak of. No one's politically got the vision to follow that up. So we don't have like a modern tramway system or, inter-town connecting rail. But if you compare, you just get on a bus when you get off at Liverpool Airport and take you to Liverpool South Parkway, and the feeling that you need to disinfect most of your body when you get off the bus because of the state of it. It's not like that over here. Okay, so I think at some point we occasionally take it a little bit for granted. Bonzo is on the line. I haven't spoken to Bonzo in ages. Hello, Bonzo, how are you?
Hello, yes, well, still here.
Well,
at least
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm enjoying it. Yes, quite. Yes, I'm not a bot, by the way.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, I'm not the product of a large language model.
No, not yet. I'm sure someone will base it on you one day.
Yeah. Yes, actually. Yes, they ought to. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
fire away. All
yeah. So yes, but just to come on to the bus drivers, just for a few minutes.
Yep.
Sorry, a minute or so. Why aren't both parties in binding arbitration at the moment?
That's a good point. As far as I'm aware, they are just... Let me just check what the latest is, because at the moment it says that just the DOI are committed to reaching an agreement with bus drivers, and further talks are taking place with MERS, which of course is the Manx Industrial Relations Service, this week. But no, there isn't any talk of binding arbitration.
Well, I don't know whether it's one side that won't do it or whether it's both sides that won't do it. But they've been having these proximity talks for quite some time now, and they've got absolutely nowhere. So what is needed is for somebody to bang heads together, and the banging of heads together can only really be done by binding arbitration.
Now,
so I would hope that there would be more pressure for that to be undertaken.
in terms of binding arbitration, I mean, for those of you who sort of, new listeners starting here, I mean, binding arbitration is a way to resolve, obviously, disputes outside of court, but both sides agree to let a neutral third party make a decision, and then that decision is final and legally enforceable. So do you feel that, obviously, with both sides being at loggerheads, that neither side wants to sign into something that they feel that, really, at the end, the legally enforceable decision that they're going to have to follow isn't going to be in their favour?
Yeah, but one of the things about politics is nobody gets everything they want.
No, but this isn't just politics. This is employee relations, isn't it?
Well, it is politics because, of course, it's the employer is a public body.
Oh, it is, but in terms of the both sides have to be into binding arbitration. So whilst the employer is a public body and it politics to a degree with a big P and a little p, the other side is, an employee who isn't a politician. It's an employee who wants fair terms and conditions for a day's work. So I can see why. I don't know which side, or if either side doesn't want to go into binding arbitration. We don't have those facts, but I could see why neither side might want to sign up to something where they would be disadvantaged at the end of it without having any say on it. They would just be legally bound by it. And surely that's quite understandable, isn't it?
Well, when that's the only way that the resolution, and a rapid resolution, which everybody wants, seems to be, that's the only avenue, then it should be a priority.
When you say everybody wants a rapid resolution, not the service users like us, we'd like a rapid resolution. I can't imagine the bus drivers want to stay on strike, but if a rapid resolution means that they're not going to be better off, or on the other side, the rapid resolution means that the department suddenly is having to pay a lot more money than it's able to find, surely then, from their perspective, it's better not to rush it and get a negotiated settlement rather than rush it where both sides are tied into something they're not happy with, and then a year later we're back at a strike again for possibility of the fact that it didn't work out right.
Yes, but the longer it goes on, the politically worse it is.
That is true.
And, of course, we have an election coming up.
Oh, yes. We forgot about that. 30 weeks, apparently. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
So the cynic in me says, or the practical person, delete as applicable, would say that, binding arbitration, really ought to be very much more actively considered, as they say.
Okay.
But yes, Orsted,
go on then. Yes, fire away.
Right, fine. I've always advocated for the offshore wind farm for the money.
Right.
That's always been the plan. The idea that the Manx were going to get mates rates electricity from it, for the birds, really. Our economic benefit from that would be, the seabed leasing and perhaps, some production revenue on top of that. In which case, you need, as far as I would be concerned, for a reasonable figure for Orsted to be coming to us with, would be something like 90 to 100 million pounds a year, index-linked, over the lifetime of the project. So,
from your perspective, I mean, I don't think anyone would, on the monetary side, disagree with the fact that if they're going to put a wind farm in our territorial waters, we want the money. And I know, and I've obviously heard Andy on this program also say that, is it going to give us cheap electricity? Can anyone give us a cost on that? And no one can. But in terms of the government needing income in order to pay for all of our services, etc., yes, we should make money out of it. How, though, do you balance that with the fact that there is a quality of life element of people not wanting these huge wind farm, what they call wind generators, off the coast, spoiling the view, and they're going to be big. They're 1,000 feet tall.
Well, that's why the money has to be right, because some of the sums which are now being talked about, because obviously we don't have the actual figures that in the public domain that they're actually discussing, but some of the sums that are being talked about are quite derisory.
But even in terms of the money, though, Bonzo, if I said to you, does everything have a price? Surely the natural beauty of the Isle of Man, once again, devil's advocate, natural beauty of the Isle of Man is priceless. So no matter what money you're going to lay down, people will say, actually, we don't want those things off our shore. How do you resolve that?
Well, firstly, it's cost benefit. Do we want the scale of health services that we have? Do we want the roads fixed? Do we want X, Y, and better education facilities? X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That all has to come from somewhere. And the fact that we can have additional revenue from this is, what we need. The problem is, of course, that it has to be, a sufficient amount of additional revenue for it to be seen in the sort of national interest that we can have that kind of.
But if I turn around to you and say, Bonzo, that okay, for argument's sake, let's just say hypothetically that the oil and gas field that's possibly under the sea there in our territorial waters, if we were going to dig up that and take advantage of that, and we would get the money from that, and it would give us all of our health services and things like this, and it would have less of a visual intrusion. Why, if I was making the same argument to you for oil and gas, would people say no to that as opposed to no to a wind farm? Because it's the same argument for economic value. So surely, if we have a price for destroying the view, do we have a price for digging up hydrocarbons as well?
Well, not really, because we don't know how much in the way of hydrocarbons is there. It's a punt.
Oh, it is a punt, yes.
Yes, this is assured money. It is ground rent. So, that's one thing. But no wind farm is going to happen unless they have access to the contracts for difference market.
Okay.
And this is another problem. Now, I can think of a way where it might be able to be done. A little complicated indeed, and I discussed this with a few Chilwell members over the years, and I think I first looked at it about 4 years ago. And I don't know if it's been pursued, but there is, I think, some way of doing it. But the bottom line of these things is no CFD, no wind farm.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Bonzo. Always great to chat to you. Okay. Do you agree with him on that one or not? Okay, when it comes to the wind farm, effectively, if you're against the wind farm in our territorial waters, because of the visual impact, do you have a price, basically? Because you would argue, I suppose, that there are always sacrifices that has to be made to pay for different services we want. We want to have health services. We need the roads sorting out, because the roads are in a poor state, let's be honest. We all know about how Manx Care is a very hungry beast in terms of money. Where does the money come from? Well, do we have to sacrifice some of our wants and needs for a beautiful view out of the window on the East Coast in order to make that happen? Well, I'd be interested in your opinion. 66 13 68. Speaking of more Mannin and Orsted, we'll speak to Julian after this.
Sarah always admired her father's strength, but as years went by, she noticed subtle changes. His once sharp memory began to fade.
Dad, you forgot our Sunday lunch again.
With Man Benham, Sarah found a way to ensure her father's assets and dignity remained protected.
Now I know Dad's future's secure, no matter what.
Protecting tomorrow's peace of mind today. Learn more at manbenham.com or call us on 639 350.
Chain, there's no chain. The chain's jumped off the sprocket. Test day action this weekend on the Derby Airfield for the Andreas Racing Association's meeting. Under 16s get in free. Adults are £3. There's full facilities. Come and see us trackside.
EVF, fueling the island and fueling you. With a great range of fresh foods and everyday essentials at our filling stations. And always great offers too. Ellen Vannin Fuels.
Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
Manx Endometriosis Support Group was set up by Karen and Sharon, who both live with endometriosis. We aim to raise awareness and education for patients, families, friends, frontline staff and medical professionals to reduce diagnosis delays and improve treatment pathways, ideally in a dedicated specialist centre. Contact Manx Endometriosis Support Group via our Facebook page for support and information.
This advert is brought to you by Kell Properties.
Cybersecurity is important for any business, no matter what the size. Protecting both you and your clients' data dramatically reduces the risk of a cyber attack. Luckily, it doesn't have to be expensive. At JTG, we're island-based and tailor our approach to cybersecurity on your needs. Protection can be as little as the cost of a coffee a week. Click jtg.im and get your free business health check today. Keep you and your business safe with cybersecurity from JTG.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Alex on the Mannin Line through until midday, sitting in for Andy today and all next week. And it's an open line through until 1 o'clock. A couple of your texts and messages coming in. James says, I hope someone lets all the visiting darts players know that they'll be not getting public buses back to the airport. I saw lots of them getting off the airport bus at the Best Western yesterday. Oh, the darts players here. I missed that bit. So thank you for that. It's Texter 925 says, it's a strike, which is an action. What the drivers have been offered is disrespectful for what they're asking for, which is parity across the public sector. Now management wants to suggest it is driver greed, which I feel is completely incorrect. Thank you for that. Texter 100 says, I paid for my kids to travel to school. It's called a go card. Yeah. I don't think I was disagreeing that you pay to get your kids to school. Bob the Marshal says, I spend 8 weeks or more on the island every year for TT, Manx Grand Prix and Southern 100. I use the excellent bus service with polite and helpful drivers a lot whilst I'm there. As has been said about privatisation, be careful what you wish for. I can't get a bus home after 6 o'clock where I live. Yeah, occasionally we do, look maybe through rose-tinted glasses at elsewhere, and we realise that actually the Isle of Man, there are, we're spoiled with some of the levels of services we've got here. Gaz says, government policy to attract 5,000 new workers to support our economy is failing. A news item reported that 263 new tax-paying over 60s have come to live on the island. In under a decade, they will likely add to the economic and healthcare problems that new workers are meant to resolve. This is part of the problem that no one, I think, is ever going to find a solution to, which is that, yes, you want to attract more people of working age to come live here, but it's almost a bit like a pyramid scheme because those people will get old and those people will require more money from the state in terms of healthcare, possible pensions and things like this, which means you then need more people of working age to pay taxes in order to fund it. So it's a vicious circle. Interestingly enough, one of my sort of interests at heart is that you might have heard that Walt Disney in his latter years was proposing setting up Epcot, a city in Orlando, Florida. It was never built. It became Epcot, the theme park, which is something completely different. But within this city, he was going to solve all the transport problems with lots of electronic monorails and people movers, and people would live in houses that they only rented, and corporations would swap out the technology, and there was going to be no pollution, etc. But one of the plans that went with that city, and possibly the reason it never got off the ground, is that only people permitted to live in that city were workers, no retirees, because you had to constantly, as far as this utopian vision was concerned, constantly contribute to society. And if you weren't contributing towards the society of this city, you weren't living there, because then you'd become a drain on the city, which is very interesting. And it highlights the problem you have in real-life society, which is that, people are going to get old and people are going to possibly need more back from the state after they've been putting into it for a number of years. So that balance is very difficult. I did promise to speak to Julian. We're going to be talking more Vannin again, I think. Hello, Julian.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
I'm not so bad, mate. Have you been down the hearings this week?
I have. Just on the point that was made earlier,
Yep.
If this is such a good deal, the agreement for lease, which Orsted would customarily pay about 150 million for something of this size in the UK, every year as like a deposit or a placeholder until they're ready to go. We haven't had hardly any of that. I don't think we've had maybe $8,000 a year or something. So if it's such a good deal, why is that? And also, they're offering us $2 billion over 30 years, aren't they, or something like that?
That was the reported figure. Yes, it was around $2 billion over 30 years.
So Chris Thomas said the other day that if they don't get a handle on Manx care spending, it's going to be $650 million a year. Well, that'll be soaked up in 3 years, though, won't it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, in terms of. We'd love it to be a massive windfall, I suppose, and to take away all our economic woes. But I think there's two issues there, isn't there, as to whether the proposed wind farm brings us the right amount of money and we feel we've got value for that. And in terms of the cost of Manx care, yeah, I mean, you can only get the healthcare that you can afford to give. If you want to keep, funding it to a certain level, we can bankrupt ourselves. Whether we can afford the 650 million that Chris Thomas is predicting is a different matter in future years, isn't it?
So to get hold of the reins then, stop hiring managers, managing managers, I think.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
in fairness to that, Julian, it's very easy to say hiring managers and managers. I mean, I know full well, just working at a radio station here, when you look at trying to make ends meet and budgets fit, you sit there and go, okay, what do you want us to stop doing? Because people aren't just sitting in offices doing nothing, twiddling their thumbs, taking a wage at the end of the day. There'll be a reason for someone's role, and as soon as you begin to cut roles, then you find out probably down the line a lot of the time that you have possibly unexpected consequences from that, and people then get up in arms saying, why have we not got this? And it's a case of, well, we cut it because you wanted to cut costs. So there is a difficulty in just cutting and cutting if you want to maintain the service, isn't there?
Well, speaking of plenty of staff, when I attended yesterday's Moor Vannin wind farm application hearing, the theme for yesterday was the potential cable laying sites at Port Skillion and Groudle, along with environmental issues, including ornithology and marine. It was immediately obvious that Orsted were extremely well staffed. There were a lot of members there, including 2 solicitors were present. DEFRA was also well represented, but it kind of showed an inequity because there wasn't much in the way of public representation, save for a couple of representatives from Manx Wildlife Trust and the Manx Bat Group. So I thought I'd muck in as well, so I sat in for a bit and had a bit of a chat with them as well. It was obvious, however, that both Orsted and DEFRA haven't been doing their homework properly. There was a requirement to give detail on the Port Skillion landing area, and despite that requirement, the consent manager hadn't done any of it. So there was no sign of any detail on that. So I think they want to see the detail on that. It's also become apparent that there was a big hole in the Isle of Man Wildlife Act of 1990, as it's mainly focused on terrestrial wildlife and doesn't fully regulate offshore marine habitats. And that's not addressed either in the MEMA regulations. However, the Isle of Man strategic plan that was put in 2016 does explicitly state that the island has important marine habitats and that planning decisions must consider the ecological impacts. So I know it's an opinion programme. In my opinion, I think DEFRA needs to get the skates on and quickly amend their regulatory loophole before it's taken advantage of. In the ornithological section, Orsted's representative for the EIA made out that there was almost no risk to birds based on computer modelling. I think he mentioned something about 1.2 seagulls or something like that. I would say, though, that, I mean, if you look at Moor Vannin's proposed scale of their wind farm, that's effectively going to be a 1,200-foot-high wall of blades covering about 68 million square feet. So that's a bit of a gauntlet to run, especially when you consider that there's about 20 million birds and around 233 species that use the Eastern Irish Sea, many of them migrating at night. So I don't know about that gauntlet. Going to be quite a lot of blades flacking around up to 1,200 feet.
That's true, Julie. I mean, when it comes to the environmental argument, and once again, I always state I'm playing devil's advocate, that when people are against a project such as a wind farm, and I know the birds argument and the environmental impact argument comes in quite a lot, but The alternative is that still, for example, burning fossil fuels, which we know have a very detrimental and toxic effect on nature, on human beings, on the environment as well. So it's almost a case of that. Are we not really being consistent in our arguments here? That yes, you can find. I don't know any way of making power that you can have that doesn't have some detrimental effect. Even if you put solar panels everywhere, you're going to be digging up planet. And you're going to tell me that then there's certain types of snails and worms that live everywhere. There is an argument that can be made for anything if we're negative against it, isn't there?
Well, look at Pulrose Power Station. I mean, it's got nitrogen oxide scrubbers. It hardly puts out any SO2. If you actually look at all the cleanliness of it, there's no particulates because it's not diesel, it's gas. So there's a CO2 basically and air. And don't forget, it's 261 feet up in the air and the wind is taking it straight out to sea within about a mile and a quarter. So, what is this desperate, horrible stuff that's... I mean, this is not like 1950s old coal power stations in Poole.
No, but it's not pumping out oxygen, is it, Julian? It's still it's as clean as we can make it, yes, with scrubbers, but it's not emission free, is it? That's the point. And also, it is, as I'm sure we're about to find out with the global situation, that it runs on fuel which is very, very much linked to the world situation, and we can find ourselves once again with possibly electricity bills going up and up and up again if we can't afford the fuel.
But don't forget, for every ton of concrete to make the wind turbines, you've got to put 1.8 tons of coal out of it to make the concrete. So, how are you going to make, if there's no coal anymore and there's none of this, how are you going to make stuff? And it's not just birds either, by the way, on the other thing we were talking about. A representative from the Manx Bat Group hasn't been invited to comment because Ørsted says there's no data. Therefore, there's no point in looking. However, the Manx Bat Group representative was very good, and he stated that they think that the soprano pipistrelle may well be commuting to the island from England, as there's no roost been found here. And he's saying that they logged these soprano pipistrelles going between Europe and the UK, commuting along. So not unheard of.
When you say there, by the way, because once again, this is arguments, and I've had an argument with the Wildlife Report before, because you say it may be. And yeah, we could say lots of things. Maybe I've had an argument once when they found a puddle near somewhere for planning permission. They said, well, it might be a place where frogs could be. Well, of course it could, maybe, but we can come up with that argument for anything. So there has to be factual evidence, as you say. There has to be a survey. There's no evidence or survey being done, as you said there. There is no facts available. Well, surely it's up to the pressure groups to provide facts, isn't it, as opposed to it may be.
Yeah, but they wanted to provide some data from what they've seen, and it hasn't been issued. But I tell you what is real.
Go on.
The noise issue of hammering in the foundation piles into the seabed. Yeah. Ørsted mentioned about blowing bubbles around the pile driving area. But that doesn't address the wildlife that's living inside the benthic area. We've got very rare eels that live in the actual sediment. So that ain't going to stop it. And I actually mentioned that these massive turbines, and we're talking 6 times the size of anything that's near any shore at the moment. So
about
these
1,200 feet,
turbines,
aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the nearest things are like 500-600 feet. But of course, as you go up, the sweep massively increases. I mean, normally speaking, they shove these things out at the likes of Dogger Bank. And actually, we're about the same distance as Dogger Bank. So I do hope it's not a case of, we'll just shove these massive things out of the Isle of Man because it'll be better for the UK population that don't see it, and we won't bother about the island. But I do notice that these massive turbines are 77% bigger and heavier and all the rest of it than the current biggest ones. So the foundations are going to be 4 times the size of the biggest ones that are far out at sea. And if you remember, there was a load of beached whales off the east coast of America, and those turbines nowhere near as big as the biggest ones. So you've got a situation, if you've got massive, I mean, you're talking about these foundation rods. They're going to be about 300 feet and much thicker. So you imagine the amount of energy that's going to be required to hammer those in. Just to finish off, by the way, I've just been listening to the live stream today, which is looking at fishing and ferry access and basically, at ferries and all the rest of it.
You've got about 30 seconds, Julian. Go on.
Yeah. So the AIS system, which is the automatic identification system
Yes.
that you use on things like Vessel Finder, Orsted were making out that there were only 9 fishing boats, but you have to be 15 metres or above to be having those fitted. So there's actually 61 fishing boats that are not showing up on the AIS system. So they're kind of shortchanging the fact that there's a heck of a lot more boats out there for fishing from the island. Also, Stena are saying that because they use the lee of the island in bad weather, there will be insufficient room for them to manoeuvre those massive ships, because they're 300 metres long, in the narrow gap, because you're going to have all the other stuff going on as well trying to fit through the gap. The steam packet agrees with that.
Okay.
And also, they're talking about radar interference, especially in bad weather. So
Okay, Julian, I'm gonna cut you off. I gave you more than 30 seconds there, but thank you. That was a good list.
all right.
Cheers. Take care.
Manx Solar Electrical offer wise solar and heating solutions for home and business. We're the Isle of Man's trusted experts in solar panels, Tesla battery storage and energy-efficient heat pumps, helping you power your home sustainably and save money. Call 66 5800 or visit manxsolarelectrical.com. Our island's energy reimagined.
Visit Ramsey Art Gallery for a fabulous range of top brand watches and stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course our gallery of prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite the RNLI shop.
Big Red Storage in Tremode and Ronaldsway offers secure self-storage units in various sizes with ground floor options and 24/7 access. Check offers and prices using our online space calculator at bigred.im or call 640040.
Scrap metal coming out of your ears? Then there's only one place to call, Castains Scrap Metal, of course. Castains pay top prices for lead, brass, copper, aluminium and stainless steel, as well as ferrous metals, scrap vehicles, and they're even licensed to scrap lead-acid batteries. Drop it off today, or Castains can come and take it away. Castains Scrap Metal, Foxtel Road, call 801 337.
The Mannin Line. Daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio.
It's 10 to 1 now. Time for a few more calls just to squeeze them in. Mark, who's a first-time caller, is on line 4. Hello, Mark. Oh, I said Mark was on the line. Here we go. This is where the tech plays up me. I'll try again. Hello, Mark. Can you hear me? No. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I will try once more to see if the tech's going to behave. Mark, can you hear me? No, I'm sorry, Mark. I did try. Nick's on line 2. Let's see if he's there. Nick, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay, Gavin?
I can hear you loud and clear. I'm sorry about that. Yes, fire away.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to comment about the bus strike. I think that they should be getting their fair pay, you know, like anybody else should. But I had a question. Why do they only get a time and a third? And am I incorrect in saying that the bus van is government owned? Is that correct?
It is, yes. It's a government owned. Officially, Bus Vannin is the Department of Infrastructure. So yes, it's
DOR.
DOR, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So with Manx Care, they get double time when they're doing extra. Why can't the bus drivers get double time when they're doing extra?
I would say.
I know it's a different
question.
department. I know it's a different department. It's a different department. I understand that.
Manx Care is effectively an arm's length organisation now, so they separated it off from being a government department to an arm's length organisation. So that, as you say, there is different structures. But that I'm sure is the question that the union representatives and the bus drivers are asking themselves, which is that why can't we be treated fairly with other organisations within government? I mean, everybody has different pays, terms and conditions. We know that. You and your job will be paid different to me and mine to someone else in their job. But
sure, I don't get time and a half. I don't get double time. I just get paid the same wage if I work extra.
Oh, but
that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
But as you say, that I possibly would say that looking at a lot of the press that's involved in this is that, yes, they're looking for more of a standard levels of pay and fairness across the system, which is possibly what you suggested there.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, I would hope so. Instead of, saying, time in 1/8 or time in 1/3 or time in 15/16.
Okay.
Why can't they just round it up to 2, double time, make them happy, keep the buses going? I mean, for one reason because of that, my son is 20, but he doesn't drive and he works like at a Spar, but he opens the shop on Sundays. He couldn't get to work till 10 o'clock last Sunday, and he's supposed to be there at 8. So his manager had to come in, and she was flipping out at him because he couldn't make it in because of the buses.
So I presume from your point of view, Nick, you would be happy for them to actually sort out the bus driver strike, treat them for what they consider fairly, and get the service back on track.
Exactly, and I think it was last week one of your callers mentioned that how many landscape gardeners do you know that charge £13 an hour or whatever the bus drivers are making? None, and that's a skilled job. Yes, well, a bus driver is a PSV license isn't easy to get, and you are in charge of 80 people they say in one go. So that there should be paid accordingly. I would thought. I mean, it's an important service. People are saying, you want more people on the buses, you want more people driving less. What's the problem?
Okay.
Easy. Raise their wages.
Good point. Thanks, Nick. Great to have your opinion on the line there. I've got about a minute left, and we've managed to get hold of Mark. Mark, can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Alex.
I'm sorry about the technical issues there, Mark. Fire away. I'm afraid we've got about a minute. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's just regarding the buses. I have experienced some bad customer service on them, but we're not going to be able to get through all of what I was going to say. But I have witnessed drivers actually using their mobile phones while they're driving the buses. 4 weeks ago, I observed a driver using the phone. His head was down to his right-hand side, not even watching the road. There are other things. I mean, their services. They have got good drivers in Busfannon, but some of them are letting the good ones down. There are bad drivers on these buses, and the buses are actually got so much damage. I don't know if you've noticed, but it will cost the public purse a lot of money, and it has cost the public purse money because I think they made £647,000 due to damage to buses that drivers have done.
Okay, Mark.
And then they want a pay rise.
Just a quick question. In terms of things like mobile phone, have you reported it to Busfannon? Because I would encourage you, obviously, to do so.
I have spoken to the guys on the picket line. I have emailed my MHK. She did want me to point out the driver, which I haven't done. Because I was hoping that it wouldn't happen again, but I am monitoring every time I'm on the buses. I monitor the drivers.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mark. I'm sorry I'm going to have to cut you off there because, we're out of time. Apologies for the technical problems there. Thank you very much for your company this afternoon. It's been a busy one, hasn't it? It's great to talk. I shall be back on Monday, sitting in for Andy all next week. Christy is up next with 1 to 3. Have a lovely Friday afternoon, won't you? Take care. Ta-da.